So the Donald Trump clown show continues, and in today's episode, we're talking about who pays the tariffs. Before, Trump and his buddies were saying China's going to pay, other countries are going to pay. I told you guys that's not going to be the case. Now Trump is upset because Walmart's basically telling you that your prices are going to go up. Trump's saying, no, Walmart, you need to eat the tariffs, you need to pay. And so now Scott Bessent is giving interviews defending Trump. So let's dive right in and see what is going on here. Let's have a watch.
Just to understand what he had to say, and understand that came from an earnings call. They on an earnings call, because of SEC requirements, they have to give the most draconian.
And so what we're talking about here is he's referring to, Walmart's basically saying we're gonna have to raise prices. So that means you, the consumer, are going to pay higher prices when you go shop at Walmart. Again, you're gonna be paying the tariffs. And Bessent's like, well, Walmart just has to say that on an earnings call just so to protect themselves. And I want to show you just a couple clips of this because you have to see that this is all a script. Watch again.
So let's see what happens. What you were describing was Walmart's earnings call. The other thing that companies have to do, they have to give the worst case scenario.
Right. So he says it twice, earnings call, earnings call. And I noticed in a couple interviews that he gave, one CNN, one on NBC, Meet the Press, it felt like the questions are, prepared ahead of time. He already has his answers prepared ahead of time. And none of this discussion is really real or honest. And that's sort of why I want to go through with you to tell you guys the truth about this stuff. It is difficult, for me to watch Bessent because a lot of stuff he says is laughable. And you'll even see the reporter here laughing at him. So watch, you'll see.
That tariffs are essentially a tax on consumers because initially President Trump said, well, other countries, that's not true. Countries pay for the tariffs. But here we have a perfect example. China gets these tariffs, and then Walmart has to raise its prices, and consumers end up paying for them.
Well, Jake, in essence, what you're saying is you're saying taxes are inflationary, so let's pass the Trump tax cuts, and that'll be disinflationary if we continue that line of thinking.
I don't know that you can put me on as endorsing anything, but go ahead.
He's like literally laughing at them because it's like he didn't say that anywhere in there. Okay. So again, you're going to end up paying the tariffs, and it feels like we have the same conversation all the time, and it's ridiculous because essentially the Trump people, they just go on TV every day, and it's like Mexico is going to pay for the wall, China's going to pay for the tariffs, and then when you find out it's not true, depending on what side of the aisle you're on, if you're a MAGA person or not, you're going to be questioning your reality, and it's better, in my opinion, with any of these discussions, is just tell people the truth from the get-go, and then you won't have this massive confusion. But that's essentially what the Trumpers want. They just want you to be confused. And the arguments that they're going to end up making as well, I mean, see, Trump has this master plan, and even if you don't understand it, just trust us, bro, because everything's going to be awesome, and you're all going to be rich. And he's like, says that several times throughout the interview. It's like, it's so asinine, but you do want to go through it because as you'll see, there's a lot of points that he makes that don't make a lot of sense, but people who follow Trump and follow the MAGA stuff, who like these people, won't be able to call it the nonsense. And that's what I want to do with you guys is, help people to see the truth of this matter of this stuff. So let's watch a little bit more here.
Let me ask you about Walmart, this big news from Walmart. It says it will start raising prices on its consumers, Mr. Secretary, as early as this month due to the tariffs. Now, President Trump out with a very stern warning on social media saying Walmart, quote, should eat the tariffs, adding the company made far more than expected last year. Is the president asking American companies to be less profitable?
Now, if that is indeed the case, and in fact, I told you guys before in the last video, there was a projections coming from Bloomberg. Basically, much of the earnings expectations, meaning how much profit / how much money companies are going to make going into future, much of those projections are going down, right? The tariff uncertainty is just raising all sorts of concerns among business leaders everywhere. And when you see profits take a hit, you're going to see the market really, really struggle. And then when essentially the ultra wealthy see their net worth go down, they stop economic activity. They stop business spending, right? Already people at the lower ends of the economic scale are seeing high prices at the grocery store. They're seeing high prices at restaurants. They're slowing spending, right? And then when you see the market sort of reflect that also, meaning that when the people at the top start to have struggles and the people at the bottom start to have struggles, that's when you got a real problem. And then we're looking at probably a recession. So this is the stuff that they have to address here. Is like, okay, so what's going to happen when businesses start making less money? We'll see what the percent has to say about this.
I was on the phone with Doug McMillon, the CEO of Walmart, yesterday, and Walmart is, in fact, going to, as you describe it, eat some of the tariffs that just as.
And remember, he coughs hours right before he lies, so he does that quite a bit.
As they did in 18, 19, and 20. The other thing, though, that we are seeing that Doug passed along to me, that with their consumer, the single most important thing is the gasoline price. And gasoline prices have collapsed under President Trump. So we are seeing that. The other thing that will happen, that is a direct tax cut for consumers. Then the transportation costs are also a big impact.
So this is the argument they're going to make. They're going to say, okay, maybe your prices are going to go up at Walmart, but you're more concerned about gas prices. So they're going to argue you're more concerned about gas prices than you are of, say, egg prices. And this is the thing that I always say when we talk about these sort of issues is, tell me what you think. Tell me what you think. Don't let them tell you what's important to you. You say what's important to you. Do you care about egg prices? Do you care about gas prices? And in fact, you should care about both. Okay, you care about all of it. I wouldn't necessarily, it's just my opinion, care about everything that costs, because there's a couple other issues. If inflation does indeed go down, okay, but don't necessarily think that's always necessarily a positive thing, because think of it this way. What if inflation goes down, but suddenly unemployment goes up? No one has any jobs, no one has any money to buy anything, and so then you'll see, prices increases decelerate, or maybe you might see prices go down, right? But because no one has any money, so just don't look at one indicator is what I'm saying. Or in the situation of gas, okay, let's say, for example, gas prices are going down in your neighborhood. And again, I want to hear from you. Do you see it going down in your neighborhood? Because everyone's neighborhood is going to be different on that. And even if you're, say, quote, gas prices go down, what if you lose your job? What if your healthcare costs go up, right? What if you can't sue companies anymore, even after a company, hurts you, these kind of things? Like, there's a whole cycle in these things. And oftentimes in any of the number of these discussions, be it politicians, that's essentially what Sen is, or any of these kind of people, they're going to cherry pick and only tell you a couple kinds of things. And so again, I just like to have honest conversations with you guys. What do you think about the stuff that he's saying in your opinion? And then the other issue that he's going to bring up as well is like, oh, well, Walmart has to say these things because it's on earnings call, et cetera. And he's only going to refer to part of the earnings call, which is with the CEO. The stuff that we've been talking about on the channel is what the CFO has been saying. And that's sort of like not on an earnings call, right? So here, right, May 16th, 2025, Walmart CFO says says higher prices are probably coming this month, right? And that was causing the headlines, and that's where Trump got mad. So they're kind of twisting, and this is the CFO. I'll let you see what he has to say here.
We had a good quarter in what is an otherwise pretty unpredictable and dynamic environment right now. Our goal, though, we're wired to keep prices low for customers. But the level of tariffs that have been proposed is pretty challenging for all retailers, for suppliers, and certainly our concern is that consumers are going to feel some of that. So we're going to keep prices as low as we can for as long as we can.
So that's the CFO right there. So that is clearly not an earnings call. That is also not the CEO. Because remember, there's the sense like, oh, I just talked to the CEO on the phone and they're going to do their best. But it's like, this is not an earnings call. Right? This is a different thing. So again, just look at everything. And effectively, the tariffs are going to raise prices for many companies and many consumers across the board. So you'll see it. It's not that hard to figure out, but you do have to show it. Listen to more. She asked him about the Fed. Let's see what he has to say here.
Kristen, to go back to what you said, the Federal Reserve is not saying that tariffs will cause inflation. They're saying they're not sure and that they're in wait-and-see mode.
So that's not exactly accurate what he was saying about the Fed. I have the Fed right here. Let's have a listen to what the Fed has to say.
How much of the higher inflation forecast for this year is due to tariffs? And since the policy path remains the same, are you effectively reading this as a one-time price level shock?
Okay, so how much of it is tariff? So let me say that it is going to be very difficult to have a precise assessment of how much of inflation is coming from tariffs and from other, and that's already the case. You may have seen that goods inflation moved up pretty significantly in the first 2 months of the year. Trying to track that back to actual tariff increases given what was tariffed and what was not. Very, very challenging. So some of it, the answer is clearly some of it. A good part of it is coming from tariffs, but we'll be working, and so will other forecasters, to try to find the best possible way to separate non-tariff inflation from tariff inflation.
Right. So that's what Fed Powell said. Bassett obviously was misportraying what Powell said, but basically what we're talking about is tariffs cause inflation. It's not hard to figure out, right? Your prices are going to go up. The issue with Fed, they're just like trying to figure out, okay, exactly by what exact measurement is it going to cause prices to go up? And they get exact read on that. So, the idea that they don't know that tariffs, cause prices to go up, they know, they just need to figure out the exact percentage and the exact, numbers on that stuff. So it's different portrayal that Bassett was saying, of course. That's why when you guys see his own words for yourself. And then again, when you talk about all these kind of things with the economy, do you want to track unemployment? Do people even have jobs to buy things as it is? Or what if prices just get too high and people just stop buying entirely, right? So for example, I'm just telling you the truth about this stuff. You guys know this. In USA, it's really, really expensive to go out to eat these days. It's horribly expensive. And so a lot of people is like, you know what? I'm just not going to go out to eat anymore. You guys know this, right? It's not shocking stuff I'm telling you. But you have to connect this stuff to the real world, and so how it affects consumer behaviors. Listen to more what he has to say here.
Let's talk about the other big news that you were a part of a week ago in Switzerland, negotiating with Chinese officials. You and the administration lowered tariffs from the high rate of 145% to 30% for 90 days to allow talks to continue. But President Trump had said previously, and I'm quoting from him, China needs to make a deal with the U.S. We don't have to make a deal with them. So why did the United States back down?
Neither side backed down. Both sides realized that this, as I had said, it was unsustainable. So we had the equivalent of an embargo.
So I would disagree with his portrayal of that. I would say Trump definitely caved and backed down, because basically China wouldn't come to the table unless the U.S. is going to lower their tariffs, right? You lower your tariffs, we'll come to the table, right? And that's essentially what it is. But the way that they're going to characterize it is that, oh, well, we both backed down, but it's not really the case. That's just my opinion on that one and how I read it. Because essentially what was going on too, Trump started this war, then China would retaliate with tariffs, and then you got the war and both tariffs go up. And so there's like, again, we're not going to negotiate until you lower your tariffs first, then we'll do the same, and then we'll go meet, etc. And then they're going to argue that now we're making progress because we have a mechanism, a way to talk more. So there hasn't been any deals made, just giving up on this stuff. They're just decided that they're going to talk about it more. That's basically what it ends up being. Let's listen to more.
Said that countries should expect letters from you, from Secretary Lutnick, saying this is what the tariff rate is going to be. Mr. Secretary, does that effectively mean that these negotiations with other countries are over? And how high should they expect tariffs to go? Above 10%?
This means that they're not negotiating in good faith. They are going to get a letter saying, here is the rate. So I would expect that everyone would come and negotiate in good faith.
So I guess now we're threatening countries with letters. If you don't, do what we say, we're going to send you a really mean letter. I guess that's what I end up being. And it's kind of funny how he's like, oh, wow, these other countries aren't operating in good faith. But as you guys know, it's honestly, it's Donald Trump and his buddies. They're the ones who are untrustworthy and aren't operating in good faith. And this goes back to just the very beginning. Remember, Trump was telling you all these other countries are going to pay the tariffs, right? Which is basically a lie. And then now he's like getting really angry. He's like, oh, well, no. Walmart's got to pay the tariffs. But ultimately, guys, you're going to pay higher taxes. Tariffs are taxes. Just be aware of that. It's frustrating having any of these conversations with Trumpers, I understand, because, they mischaracterize things so much. Because I get it. That's why we go through this stuff all the time. I just wanted to show what they're saying. And also, we'll take us some more here.
That rate, though, that you would slap on any country that you think is not negotiating in good faith to be above 10%?
Well, I think that it would be the April 2nd level. Some countries were at 10%, some were substantially higher, and the negotiating leverage that President Trump...
It's looking like that we may have across-the-board tariffs. I guess we're getting rid of free trade in USA. That's what it sounds like to me. So we'll see what it ends up being, but again, they're sending out angry letters. Listen to some more here.
So, but Kristen, what I can tell you is I think this is a off-ramp for many in the media not to acknowledge what an incredible trip this was. President Trump has brought back trillions of investments in the United States. Every stop we made, the enthusiasm in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in the United Arab Emirates to invest in the United States, that they want to push more and more the funds here.
So he's coughing quite a bit during this part. He knows it's all nonsense. So this is the stuff I want to show you guys that a lot of other channels, they won't talk about that much on TV media, etc. We'll call them out on the BS. So the BS, what's the BS? So Trump, Bassan, all these people say, oh yes, all these Arab countries have just unlimited cash. They're just so rich. They're oil companies, and they're all going to invest in USA. The idea of unlimited money, no one has unlimited money. There's only so much money and funds that you can commit. That's just the reality of it. There is a finite amount. You can look at some of these little articles. I'll just show you guys some. This is from March 2025. Saudi fund broadens cash quest to meet MBS spending goals. So my understanding, they have this thing. It's their wealth fund and over in Saudi, and I think they want to get it up to 100 billion in spend or something like that by 2030. So that's a long ways down the line, like 5 years from now. This is nowhere near the trillion that Trump has been touting. They are also borrowing money, issuing bonds. You can see this. This stuff you'll find it's tracked in the public markets, right? They're trying to essentially raise money. And I always pose this question to you: if Saudi is so wealthy, or if Elon Musk has all this money all the time, why are they constantly asking people for money? It's a legitimate question. And you also have to understand, oftentimes the way that these kind of people portray how much cash, or better way to say it, is assets under management. It can depend on how you're valuing said thing. So for example, make it really simple. Let's say you own 3 cars, okay? And I say, how much your car is worth? And some people can be honest about how much their cars are worth, and some people may not be. And if you lie about how much your cars are worth, remember you have 3 cars, you can theoretically borrow more money from the bank. Or you could theoretically raise more money because you say, I got these 3 cars and they're just worth, tons and tons of cash. And what if it turns out those 3 cars that you have, that they're actually digital cars, right? Kind of like Bitcoin, kind of like whatever, right? And you're saying, well, see, these digital assets, they're just so awesome. And everyone's going to want to buy this car. In 10 years, this digital car that I have is going to be fantastic. And point being is that your, values of your assets can be manipulated. So, who knows how much they really have or how much they're really worth. All I know is just factually, they're out raising money. The Saudis are out raising money. Trump is saying before, is like, oh, okay, we're going to make this announcement. Saudi or whatever is going to invest 600 billion into us. And then Trump, and I've showed you guys in prior videos, Trump's like, wow, I asked him, could you just make that $1 trillion pledge? Like, these are all pledges, right? It's just words. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay. And it's like, see, Trump's like, oh, wow, see how easy that was to go from 600 billion to $1 trillion? Yeah, it is easy to say said things, but no money has passed hands. These are just all pledges over the next, 10 years or whatever. And that's why I'm showing you these guys, these actual numbers of this stuff. So, for example, here, this is last year. Okay, so it says Saudi Arabia's nearly 1 trillion wealth fund swings to a profit. So I've seen different numbers on how much they have assets under management. Could be anywhere from 900 billion, could be 800 billion, could be $1 trillion, just something in that range. So if theoretically, Saudi or whatever, right? These are just some numbers here, are going to invest $1 trillion, right? Come from one place. Does that mean they're going to sell all of their assets and all of their funds are going to go to the USA? And you guys should know this inherently. No, no one would do that. That's ludicrous. Right. But if you don't understand numbers and you have no way to look this kind of stuff up, you wouldn't realize that, wow, the stuff that Trump says is a bunch of hot air. It's a bunch of nonsense. The Saudis, they may not even have that much cash. Here's one example. Maybe they have, it says here, its cash reserves have risen to 65 billion, right? That is far short of the 600 million, let alone the trillion. And again, this goes back to just understanding, basic numbers and getting how sort of money works, where you can, again, lie about valuations of things. Everything's based on debt. This is part of our modern, economies. You guys know how this is. If you want to buy a house, you borrow money. You want to go to school, you borrow money. You want to buy a car, you borrow money, right? And then on that borrowed money, you take that house and you say, I have this house worth blah, 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 even though it's borrowed money. And then you borrow more money, right? And this cycle continues. This is sort of how this world works. And it gets even bigger and more crazier when you move up the economic scales, because then you're paying people to keep quiet about how much stuff is actually worth, or how much cash you really have on hand. And so it goes to the, remember, Trump is a real estate person, and again, it's a juggling act. Musk knows this world very well as well. Let's watch a little bit more here.
Qatar doesn't, Saudi doesn't, UAE doesn't. They're all pushing money in. They've made 10
And what is he saying about doesn't? He's like, well, they don't care about the, credit rating of the USA going down. They don't care. Look at all this money they're bringing us. Just listen to what he says.
They made 10-year investment plans. So this administration, we're doing peace deals, trade deals, and
just remember, guys, a lot of things can happen in 10 years. So I'll give you an example here. Besant will talk about, oh, yes, there's going to be this great deal in Oklahoma. It says UAE company to build a $4 billion aluminum smelting facility, right? Okay. So you can see there's some plans to do this. And then you look it up here. Here's the key. It says the project is expected to create 1,000 direct jobs and 800 indirect jobs. So maybe. But the agreement is contingent upon the Oklahoma legislature approving a package of financial incentives that includes $275 million from state, as well as state property sales and inventory tax exemptions. So will this, thing get the tax benefits that the Saudis or who the UAE want in this example? Who knows? Got to go through their legislature. And then you have to think about this, guys, how this stuff, yes, maybe some people will have some jobs, but maybe when you decrease that tax revenue, that could have been other, companies or whatever paying the property taxes to help your communities, there's going to be an imbalance, right? And this is sort of goes back to who are we giving tax benefits to, who's getting said jobs, and who's profiting off said, business as a whole. I can just be honest with you about this stuff. When in doubt, for the Trump people, when you look at the stuff that they say, they're all in it for themselves. And when they give you like these, crazy pipe dream numbers of all this money coming in, and it's all a done deal. Whenever you closely look at the details of said thing, you realize, wow, it really is a bunch of smoke and mirrors. Anything can happen over the next 10 years. When someone gives you a pledge that we're doing something and giving you trillions over 10 years, guys, anything can happen in the next 10 years. So, it's hard to even know what Trump's going to be doing from day to day, let alone what he's tweeting. Downturn economy or any, crazy situation in the global, conflicts in the Middle East. I mean, it's an unstable region there. Things can change quickly. So I'm always skeptical about this kind of stuff. And I think it's a reasonable perspective. I'd like to hear yours, and I'll catch you all in the next video.